telling me no, but my body's telling me yeah.
Yo, fam. Word on the street is Robert finally walked out those gates, and people wasted no time showing up on him. The man barely had a chance to breathe fresh air before things got loud.
I have no idea that there's two different men. That there's the person, Robert, there's the persona, R. Kelly.
Strap in, because what really happened the moment those jail doors swung open felt like a whole movie. On February 25th, 2019, Robert Kelly turned an ordinary Monday into a headline-making spectacle. After spending about 4 days in Cook County Jail on state sexual abuse charges involving 4 alleged victims, 3 of them minors, a suburban Chicago woman posted his $100,000 bond, and around 5:25 p.m., he was released. What followed quickly went viral. He left in a black van and, roughly 30 minutes later, arrived at the iconic rock and roll McDonald's in Chicago's River North neighborhood. Of all places, he stepped out for chicken nuggets and Big Macs, signing autographs, shaking hands, and posing for selfies with fans as if it were a meet and greet. One fan even shouted, "I love you," as he smiled and waved back. But the McDonald's stop wasn't the main event. From there, his crew headed to Big's mansion, an upscale cigar lounge in Gold Coast, where he spent hours relaxing with cigars while his legal troubles escalated outside. That sequence, jail to fast food to cigar lounge in a single evening, became the defining image of his brief release. The cigar moments didn't end there either. On Easter Sunday, April 21st, 2019, he was seen outside his Trump Tower condo in Chicago beside a Rolls-Royce, smoking a large cigar and talking on his phone, appearing calm and unconcerned despite ongoing legal and financial issues. Around that same time, he sat down with Gayle King for a now infamous CBS interview, where, when asked about the allegations, he responded in a highly emotional and explosive manner.
What are the lies that you're hearing that disturb you most?
Oh my God, all of them. That little girl's trapped in the basement.
That entire sit-down was peak Robert energy. He denied everything, gestured emphatically, and grew visibly heated.
Describing Lucifer. I'm not Lucifer. I'm a man. I make mistakes.
Real talk. The contrast between him crying on national television and then casually grabbing a Big Mac is exactly why these clips keep resurfacing online. Years later, the carefree autographs, the oversized cigars, and the Rolls-Royce all clash sharply with the reality of him sitting in federal prison with projected release date in 2045. That contrast fuels memes and ironic commentary across TikTok, Instagram Reels, X, and Facebook, while misinformation only adds to chaos. Old videos get reposted with captions falsely claiming a new release, escape, or pardon. In 2024, PolitiFact confirmed that he was still incarcerated and that the 2019 bail footage was being recycled with misleading captions, with some edits even adding fake subtitles or pairing clips with AI-generated audio to push false narratives further. The Trump Tower cigar clip, in particular, continues to circulate in memes, especially in April 2026 chatter on X whenever someone is seen smoking a large cigar, while the McDonald's footage is often used in ironic posts, partly due to allegations highlighted in the surviving R. Kelly documentary about him approaching teenage girls at such locations. When reports surfaced in early 2026 stating a projected release date as December 21st, 2045, social media erupted again, with Reels and TikToks reusing old 2019 clips and captions like, "This was him the last time he was free," alongside false early release claims that fact-checkers quickly debunked. Meanwhile, on the legal front, his defense team, including attorneys Jennifer Bonjean and Bo Brindley, has pursued every possible avenue, but the outcomes have remained firm. His 2021 New York conviction resulted in a 30-year sentence for racketeering and sex trafficking, and his 2022 Chicago conviction added 20 years for child pornography production, with 1 year to be served consecutively, leading to an effective sentence of about 31 years and a projected release date in 2045, when he will be nearly 79. Appeals to the Second U.S. Circuit Court were unanimously rejected on February 12, 2025, affirming that he had exploited his fame for decades, while the Seventh Circuit upheld the Chicago conviction. Subsequent attempts to take the case to the Supreme Court were also denied, including a final rejection on June 23, 2025, effectively closing the door on direct appeals, even as he continued to present himself as a victim in earlier interviews.
I have been assassinated. I have been buried alive. But I'm alive.
But the team kept pushing hard. In August 2025, they filed a motion to disqualify the entire U.S. Attorney's Office from the case, but Judge Martha Packole rejected it, saying it lacked justification and failed to meet the high legal standard. calling it an extreme request. The most dramatic move came in June 2025, when they filed an emergency motion alleging that 3 Bureau of Prisons officials were involved in a murder-for-hire plot, supposedly recruiting an Aryan Brotherhood inmate to target Robert. They also claimed mail tampering and misuse of attorney-client information. Attorney Beau Brindley even held a press conference portraying Robert as someone exposing corruption, drawing comparisons to issues raised by President Trump, while the team publicly appealed to him for clemency, bypassing the usual legal channels. However, Judge Packold denied the motion, citing lack of jurisdiction since Robert is incarcerated in North Carolina, not Chicago, and prosecutors dismissed the allegations as fanciful and deeply unserious. Looking back at his earlier interview with Gayle King, Robert had already been projecting that same victim narrative.
30 years of my career!
Robert.
30 years of my career! Y'all trying to kill me!
The sentence length itself remains controversial. On one side, victim advocates argue that 30 years is too light, given decades of alleged abuse involving dozens of victims, many of them minors. On the other hand, some commentators, 30 years harsh for non-homicide offenses, and question the use of RICO laws for a solo artist rather than traditional criminal enterprise. Sentencing judges, however, emphasized a calculated pattern of behavior over 25 years that showed a clear indifference to human suffering. Fast forward to mid-February 2026, Robert found himself in further trouble after being placed in solitary confinement, what federal authorities call the Special Housing Unit, SHU, at FCI Butner Medium I. The situation arose after a cell search, triggered by a cellmate being caught with a contraband phone, led to the discovery of Robert's notebook containing the personal phone number of a retired prison official, specifically a former warden. At first glance, the situation wasn't entirely suspicious, as Robert had reportedly been involved in a prison mentoring program overseen by that official, who had given him his number before retiring. Attorney Beau Brindley maintained that the contact was legitimate, but prison authorities viewed any personal contact information for a former official as a potential security risk, especially when found alongside contraband. As a result, an internal investigation was launched, and Robert was placed in the SHU as a precaution. Brindley later described the conditions as harsh, noting that inmates in the SHU spent around 23 hours a day in their cells with severely restricted access to commissary, phone calls, visits, recreation, and
I
programs.
need somebody to help me not have a big heart.
By mid-March 2026, an internal review found no wrongdoing, and Robert was returned to the general population. Attorney Beau Brindley criticized the extended hold, calling it unjustified and unfair, while Black Enterprise reported on the outcome. As is standard, the Bureau of Prisons declined to comment on internal security matters. Public reaction quickly turned chaotic. Supporters in a free R. Kelly Camp expressed outrage, spreading conspiracy theories about target harassment and claiming authorities were trying to derail his appeals, while critics and victim advocates responded with indifference, sarcasm, and reminders of his past convictions. In earlier interviews, Robert himself had even suggested that he needed more than just legal help, adding another layer to the ongoing public debate. But fam, this whole solitary situation in February 2026 wasn't even his first experience behind prison walls. The story goes much deeper, with incidents involving violence, alleged plots, and ongoing chaos inside the federal system. Robert Kelly has been in continuous federal custody since July 2019, and his time in prison has been anything but quiet. He initially entered the Metropolitan Correctional Center, MCC, in downtown Chicago, where issues began almost immediately. Shortly after arriving, he was placed in the Special Housing Unit, SHU, while his legal team claimed it was unjustified. Reports suggested he had actually requested protective custody out of fear of other inmates, viewing isolation as a safer option given the nature of his charges. By September 2019, attorney Stephen Greenberg confirmed that Robert had been moved out of the SHU and placed either in general population or with a cellmate, with prosecutors later noting this in court filings to dispute claims of prolonged isolation. Then in August 2020, a major incident brought renewed attention when Robert was assaulted in a cell at MCC Chicago by fellow inmate Jeremiah Shane Farmer, a convicted Latin Kings member serving a life sentence for double murder. Farmer reportedly attacked him while he was either resting or sitting on his bed, striking him multiple times before guards intervened, eventually using pepper spray. Robert sustained cuts and bruises, but no life-threatening injuries. The attack occurred during a period of heightened tension at the facility, with reports suggesting frustration among inmates due to repeated lockdowns linked to protests outside over Robert's case, along with strict COVID-19 restrictions. After the incident, he was again placed in the SHU for protection, and his attorneys, Tom Mesereau, Doug Anton, and Steve Greenberg, called for his release on bail, arguing the prison could not guarantee his safety. The situation took another turn when Farmer filed a handwritten motion alleging that prison staff had encouraged or allowed the attack to happen in order to draw attention to his own case, even claiming guards delayed intervention, though prosecutors and officials dismissed these claims as unfounded. Farmer did not face additional charges specifically related to the assault, reportedly because he was already serving a life sentence. At the time, MCC Chicago itself was facing serious issues, including violence, staffing shortages, and poor conditions that eventually led to parts of the facility being shut down. Robert's legal team used the assault to support repeated bail requests, but each attempt was ultimately denied. The incident sparked debate over whether Robert was receiving special treatment or, conversely, was underprotected because of the nature of his crimes. By early 2023, after his sentencing concluded, he was transferred to FCI Butner Medium I in North Carolina, a medium security facility, where another major episode unfolded in June 2025. On June 10th, shortly after his legal team filed an emergency motion seeking temporary furlough or home confinement, he was placed in the Special Housing Unit, SHU. The motion alleged a murder-for-hire plot involving Bureau of Prisons officials who supposedly recruited an Aryan Brotherhood inmate to kill him, along with claims of mail tampering, witness intimidation, and misuse of attorney-client information obtained through a cellmate. His attorneys argued that his placement in solitary was retaliatory. Around June 12th to 13th, while in isolation, his lawyers claimed prison staff administered an excessive dose of his prescribed anxiety and sleep medications, far beyond what was authorized. According to their account, he collapsed, crawled to his cell door, lost consciousness, and was transported to Duke University Hospital in Durham, North Carolina, where he was treated for conditions including blood clots in his lungs, and remained hospitalized for about 2 days. The legal team further alleged that he was removed from the hospital against medical advice and returned to solitary, while he reportedly refused some prison meals due to fears of being poisoned, and even compared his situation to Jeffrey Epstein's death in custody, saying he felt safer in a regular cell. These claims became part of supplemental filings to the emergency motion, with attorney Bo Brindley publicly framing the situation as evidence of corruption and appealing directly to former President Trump for clemency, bypassing standard procedures. However, around June 19 to 20th, 2025, Judge Packold denied the request, citing lack of jurisdiction since the matter involved a North Carolina facility and finding no legal basis for relief. While prosecutors dismissed the allegations as fanciful and unserious, a planned hearing was ultimately canceled. Prison officials and Bureau of Prison sources described the hospitalization as routine medical care rather than an intentional overdose. Despite all this, reports indicated that Robert remained musically active while incarcerated, with TMZ noting in March 2025 that he even sang during a podcast interview from prison, suggesting he was still trying. Footage even surfaced online showing him performing his classic songs for fellow inmates, while his lawyers were simultaneously filing emergency motions claiming his life was in danger, a striking contrast. Across these incidents, certain patterns kept emerging. Robert's legal team consistently portrayed his placements in the Special Housing Unit, SHU, as punitive, part of larger plots, or evidence of inhumane treatment in an effort to support release motions, all of which were ultimately denied. In contrast, the Bureau of Prisons and prosecutors described these measures as standard protocol and pushed back against what they viewed as exaggerated claims. Public records do not indicate that Robert spent extended time in the SHU due to disciplinary infractions like fighting or contraband possession. Instead, his status as a high-profile celebrity inmate likely contributed to more frequent use of protective or investigative housing. The August 2020 assault at MCC Chicago remains a primary confirmed physical attack against him, with no other major altercations publicly documented. Most of his time in restricted housing can be traced to three main factors: protective custody for safety concerns, administrative investigations, such as the 2026 phone number incident, and claims of retaliation tied to his legal filings in 2025. The June 2025 hospitalization, in particular, sparked sharply divided reactions online, with supporters viewing it as evidence of systemic targeting and corruption, while critics saw it as exaggerated claims aimed at securing release after appeals had been exhausted. These narratives fed into ongoing post-conviction efforts, including motions for a new trial in the Chicago case. It is also important to note that the facilities themselves had documented issues independent of Robert's situation. MCC Chicago faced problems with violence, drugs, and COVID-19 conditions that eventually led to partial closure, while FCI Butner has also been scrutinized for medical and housing concerns, suggesting broader systemic challenges rather than targeting of a single inmate. Still, his legal team raised serious allegations, including claims of a murder-for-hire plot, improper access to attorney-client communications, mail tampering, and constitutional violations amounting to cruel and unusual punishment. When Judge Pachold canceled a planned hearing and denied the related motion, the defense announced plans to seek to vacate the Chicago convictions based on what they described as newly discovered evidence. By late 2025, deadlines for responses to a motion for a new trial had been extended into early 2026, with continued filings referencing threats to his life, solitary confinement, and medical concerns, none of which resulted in release. Courts repeatedly found the claims insufficient or outside their jurisdiction, while the Bureau of Prisons largely declined to comment, citing security and privacy. Despite the ongoing allegations of plots, attacks, overdoses, and isolation, his projected release date remained unchanged at December 21st, 2045, with every emergency motion denied